I'm Matt. This is Let's Talk Music, and I'm here with Lauren of DramaScream. How you doing how you doing this evening?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing all right. So you guys are based out of Endicott, New York,
Yes.
and what is that close to?
Um, we're like an hour from Syracuse, New York. We're like 3 hours, 3.5 hours from the city, like New York City. Um,
Okay.
we're like 2 hours from Albany.
Hmm. So
So we
kind of
have
just
some
out there.
hours. We're like central New York, yeah.
And how's the music scene in Endicott?
It's there. It's a lot of cover bands
Gotcha.
playing at bars. Like there's not really a venue. There's not a lot of venues for original bands
Okay.
or for like bigger bands to come in and play.
So the way that I found you guys was you just popped up in my Facebook feed.
Oh,
um, Well, you know how Facebook is. It works on
yeah.
algorithms, and whenever you're, into music, it's 95% of my Facebook anymore is music. And
Yeah.
uh
Yeah.
it had popped up with your newest single, and I was like, well, okay, who are these? Who's these guys? And I listened to it and I was like, wow, I really liked it. So that's why I, was wanting to reach out and talk to you guys.
Oh, thank you.
So Revive is the new album,
Yeah.
correct?
Yep. It's an EP. Yeah.
And Revive is also a single.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what I was looking at there is like Destroy Me, What I Become, and Revive. Looks like you released all those out on YouTube about a month ago.
Roughly, yeah.
Okay. Well, What I Become, I mean, in 1 month has 4.2 thousand views, so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, for us it is because it's hard to get our music out there when we don't have like a label or, you know, a ton of cash.
Hey, that's a lot of bands that I talk to though. I mean, they're independent. That's one of the reasons I do this is to, try to help get people heard.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
I mean, I don't have like a enormous following or anything, but I mean, I got some people in my contacts that are, pretty big. So,
Right. And that's kind of what it is. It's just like making connections and like those connections have connections and then we all like help each other grow. So that's kind of the whole independent scene.
right. So, I mean, are you guys looking for a label or do you like being independent?
So I feel like it's a double-edged sword. I think by the time a label would be interested in us, we would have put in all the work to where we could make ourselves be independent, but maybe if it got too much for us to handle, then maybe the right deal could come along for a label. But I honestly, I don't know. I mean, I like the independence because we go to shows when we sell our merch as our merch, but it's very hard to marketing. Marketing is hard for us
Right.
because
Eh,
we're not I don't know how to say it. Like some people are really good at marketing and they just want to be like, "Hey, this is me, look at my band." I have a very hard time with it because I'm like, it's music, like it speaks for it's like I've just come from a very like point of view of like if I hear something and I can feel it, I'm like, "Yes, okay, I love this," but it's not the same for a lot of people. So,
Hey, you and I got that in common. I I am one that I love music I can feel.
yeah.
I talked to a band last night that most of their songs is based on mental health and amazing guys, awesome group, and I mean, as soon as I heard their release that they just came out with, I was like, oh my god, I love it. I want to talk to them. And I mean, if you guys are interested, I can send you some publicist names if that's something you'd be interested in.
Yeah. Whatever you have, just send our way or send us everybody's way and then whatever works.
Yeah, I mean they all of them really like working with independents. They prefer unsigned bands. A
Yeah.
lot easier to work with.
Yeah, there's no like red tape, I guess.
Right.
Way to say it, but yeah.
So I mean, you guys just released the CP and you got these singles out. Any shows planned?
Yep, we're playing actually in a few weeks. So we've got one in Syracuse with a band called Sleep Signals on April
Okay.
27th, and then April 29th we're playing a hometown show because we haven't played our area in a while with two other bands. And then we're playing a festival that's kind of just starting in New York. It's called Vortex Fest. We just got announced, so like that's pretty much all we can say right now because we can't say who else is playing it. So,
Gotcha. Yeah,
but it
but
looks like it'll be cool. So,
I've actually
and
talked to Sleep Signals. They're pretty cool guys.
looking forward to, we'll be meeting them, so that's cool. And we're gonna, I'm sure we're gonna add shows. It just like we don't have to do it as far in advance as everybody else. So like as we add them, we announce them.
So who does the booking for you?
I guess me. I I do have like a couple people that we work with like locally. They are a like a promotion company, and they bring in bands and stuff from the other areas. So like it's not here. It's usually Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo.
Hmm.
So they're a promo. It's a promotion company. I don't know what you want to call them. So they usually will message us and say, "Hey, you want to play this show?" And then we'll say, "Yeah." Um, we try to play venues that have sound support, and we're at the point now where we don't want to, we don't want to oversaturate ourselves in our area because it's such a small area. So we
Right.
only play once. So that's where it's like we reach out to other bands, and sometimes they'll just get a hold of us. We've been fortunate where we've been asked on shows as of recently, except for this one we just booked. So it's kind of me and then just networking.
Gotcha. So, I really I listened to probably about, I don't know, 5, 6 songs. Like I said, Revive, What I've Become, Destroy Me, Who Waits, Circle, Sham, and I really enjoy your voice.
Thank you.
You have a very nice range, and that kind of, I guess, makes me wonder, have you had any vocal training, or is this just natural ability?
Um, so I never had any training until like a little while ago. I had gone to somebody in the past. And they kind of showed me how to like warm up and cool down, sort of, because I was losing my voice and I wasn't understanding why. And now I'm going to somebody, and they're helping me hone my range because my range hasn't necessarily changed, but the quality in which I sing it, I think, has improved, and the amount of effort I need to put in has decreased. And I don't mean in like effort as in like me practicing. I mean effort as in to sing certain notes.
Right.
I've learned better ways. I've learned how to sing much healthier over the past few years. I taught myself how to scream. I've never had a vocal lesson for that. I always just I don't know why that's the thing that I knew how to do. I just watched like videos and was like, okay, if this okay, I'm not gonna lose my voice, and then like I practice it, and if it hurts, I don't do it. If it doesn't, so yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I've talked to a lot of female fronted bands recently, and most of them have been over in Europe, and they do a lot of the growls and the screams. Plus, they have like a classical operatic training,
Yeah,
um, and it's kind of like a night wish type thing.
right.
And the ladies I talked to over there, like, yeah, at first it was a little rough, and one lady was like, she goes, "I've always just been good at screaming." She said, "Why not try to, with singing?" And I was like, "Okay," and she did a little growl for me, and I was like, "Wow!" I can't even bring myself to do it. It hurts my throat.
When you do it, like some of it, like for me, some of it comes natural, but I definitely think that I will never not have a vocal coach because it keeps you in check
Mm,
and it makes you work harder. And I mean, for me, like financially, I can have one now. Like I just couldn't afford it before.
right.
Your money goes into all different things, you know, um, Especially like in college, it was like that's not happening. And my parents were never like, "We think you're going to be a singer." Like my parents were like, "Well, if that's what you want to do, like have good luck." Like they're not into the arts that way, so
Right.
it wasn't something that was pushed. So I I'm not saying that there's no value in vocal coaching because I will say I will never, not have a coach no matter what happens with like the band. Like if we blow up or whatever, like I will still have a coach because you can always be better. Like I think
Hmm.
you can always, there's always things that you want to search to do. Like if there's no goal, then you're not growing. So like whether it's maybe I will find someone for screaming or whatever, but I had a couple quotes for coaches that teach you screaming and they were just like a lot of money. I was like, I'm just gonna keep doing it myself.
Right.
So
Well, and I mean, injuries can happen to the vocal cords too. So
right. That's why I have a coach because I run through it and I'm like, hey, is this sound good? Is this normal? So
gotcha. So you're in the band with Justin, who plays drums, Steve on
mhm.
guitar, and Greg, who plays bass.
Mhm.
How did you guys come together? How'd you meet?
Steve and I met because we were in a cover band together and we always wanted to do originals and we just couldn't find people. And then I had left the cover band because I was in a really bad relationship and my ex did not want me performing music. Like he was just, I don't know. I just had a moment of weakness and left music for a while. And then I decided, okay, no, I'm done with this. And I came back to it and Steve and I were like, okay, we're gonna do this. We had a friend who had uh, passed away by his own accord. And
Gotcha.
that kind of made us be like, wow, life's really short. Like, we should probably just do this. And that's kind of been our motto ever since we started this thing was like, life is short. Like, we're not going to regret not giving it everything. So then Steve and I started it. And after about 6 months, um, we were going through musicians like crazy because again original music is hard in our area and we found that Greg was not in a band and I had like heard of Greg, knew who Greg was, and I'm found out he didn't have any projects, so we showed him the music and he was like, oh yeah, sure, I definitely auditions. We came in and it was like set, and then within 6 months from there the drummer that we had just it wasn't he wanted to do different style and he was had done covers before and just wasn't going we weren't going in the same direction, so he left, and Justin was actually our first audition and our last audition. So
Nice.
we've pretty much it's been this lineup, but that's we met Justin because he got referred by one of my friends. So
So it looks like your Built to Follow was released in 2017. That was your debut album. So did you guys start in like 2016, 2015? When did you form the band?
no, honestly, like we had been writing the music, but we didn't have our 2016. I would say we had like maybe a show or two, but we didn't do much in 2016. 2017 was like the start of when we started playing, and that's when we released the album. But Steve had mainly written, and we had people come in to record and play for Built to Follow, and then released that 2017, and then from there is where that was more when we sometimes I wish we would have given ourselves a little time before we released because some songs I don't know if I would have put out, but then like that's who we were and like we've grown as a band, so I guess I can't be upset about it because it shows our growth. But
And then In Your Mind followed in 2019,
yes,
and then COVID.
yeah, COVID killed us. It did a lot. I mean, it did a lot to a lot of bands, but
Yes.
COVID definitely. We had a lot of cool things lined up, and we had just we had some cool things happen and there was momentum from them, and we lost momentum on everything because we couldn't play live and we didn't understand as much as we do now, not that we have a hold on it, but the need to market and put ourselves out there on a consistent basis. We didn't understand how powerful it was, and we were like, oh, we'll just do like live shows here and there and blah blah blah. And I mean, we did a little bit, but we just kind of, everybody, I think everybody kind of hit a slump. So
Yeah. I mean, and that I've heard that from, um, I wouldn't say. a lot, but quite a few bands that would say, we were really starting to pick up. Our momentum was great, and then COVID hit, and bam, we hit a brick wall.
I feel like we had to restart and like reprove ourselves.
Right,
And a lot of bands, some bands did, like I always reference pretty much every interview I do. I think COVID was an amazing time because bands like Spirit Box and Ginger, who were popular in their own right, like in the scenes, came a little bit more to the forefront, and people were like, "Oh my God, these bands are incredible." I mean, the Spirit Box especially, I think would be it's a test to them. Like kudos to them, the marketing that they did so that they got their names out there because they just blew up, and
right.
they had never really played that many shows, and they used it to their advantage. And I think that's one of the smartest things, that bands can do. And then some bands like you hear like Bad Omens, like they were like, oh yeah, we wrote a lot. For me, it was very hard to write during COVID because I was just so friggin' depressed. Like I was just like, this sucks. And normally I can have good lyrics come out of it, but it was like beyond that. So I don't know. Like, I mean, I snapped out of it, obviously.
Well, and see, that's one of the things that I talk about with bands is that that was a harsh time where for not just musicians but for fans of the music, and we weren't able to see shows, you weren't able to perform, and it really sucked. But on the other hand, like Bad Omens, like you said, bands I think got time to sit down and really write quality music. It
Yeah.
wasn't like a cookie cutter music. It was more of, okay, we're not being rushed by deadlines or whatever, and we can sit here and do this. And I mean, honestly, I feel like music has improved a little bit since COVID.
Yeah, I think there's a more people are noticing things now, I guess. I don't know. Um, but it it was definitely a weird, like it feels like it was yesterday and I'm like, "Oh my God, it's 2023." Like that's the thing of COVID. I was like, "So do we get to like pause everything and like go cuz still messes with me." But I mean, we did. There were things that we worked on, but I don't know. I guess I'm got to believe that everything happens for a reason, and we didn't do whatever we didn't do, and can't look back. That's kind of what I've become is about, though. It was that because I have a tendency to obsess and dwell on the past, and like if I had done this, and if I had done this, and if I had done this, then I would be where I am, and when I go
Oh,
through
yeah.
the rabbit hole, and I think I quit my band in my head like weekly. I'm like, I can't do this. There's no point. Why am I even doing this? Because I'll see, someone else and I'm like, oh, wow, look how great they are and look how good. Then they're so much further along than I am. And if I had just done this, and it's like, and I stop and I have to go back and say, okay, why did you do this? Okay, you did this because life is short and you regret. So then I have to like reel it in. But it took me a long time to get to even this point. So
And then you guys, I mean, come out with Revive, what,
yeah,
February 10th.
yeah,
So just brand new music. Um, you got everything out there on YouTube right now. Uh,
yeah.
and like I said, you popped up in my news feed. So obviously, whatever marketing you guys are doing through social media is working. You know,
Yeah, there's two people that we know. They are actually helping us with it because I explained like I would just wish we had help, and they have been so gracious, and they're we meet them and they're like, okay, just try doing this, just try doing this, and I'm like, okay, because they know that it's not easy to be an independent artist, and
right.
really frustrating. And actually, now that I think about it, COVID, um, we didn't get a lot done because I lost my voice and couldn't sing for like a really long time. And it had nothing to do with my singing. It was because I got COVID, then I got laryngitis, and my one side of my vocal cords like ended up having like paralysis. So
Oh,
that's
wow.
another reason we didn't get it done. Sham was the last song I recorded, and then didn't record anything for Revive until March or April, I think. It was like August to March until I actually finally had my voice back. So that was not a fun time.
I mean, do you love what you do?
Absolutely, 100%.
Well, I mean, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
You know,
I
and
I know.
And I get it, I really do, because with this, I'm not making any money from it. You know what I
Right.
mean? Eventually I've got stuff to make merch. I just haven't got around to it because life's been so busy. But it's because I love it, because I love music. I love talking to musicians. I love discovering new music. Um, and it's just a passion. So it's like, I just worked, an 11-hour day. And then I come home and at 8 o'clock did an interview. I was literally home for 25 minutes,
Yeah.
did an interview. And then right after I got done with them, prepared for you guys.
Yeah.
And, after that, it's editing and then bed. So, you know,
Yeah.
it, it,
That's
it's a tireless effort, but it's also worth it in so many ways, and I think whenever I have, a band that I interviewed that, they'll post, had an awesome talk with Matt from Let's Talk Music or whatever, or they in some way kind of get me out there and also praise me for what I was, for my talk with them. And I'm like, I'm the one that's lucky, you're the one that took the time to talk to me, and but that kind of stuff makes it all worth it. I mean, just as well as like when you guys are out playing a show and you've got a great crowd and they know your songs, they're singing it back to you and everything. I mean, that's got to make it all worth it right there.
it does. It does. It's not that it doesn't. It's just um I have always been a I don't know if it's just insecurity, but it's very just I'm constantly worried and not worried about what other people think. Like I worry, but I don't. But then I'm like, oh, because it's like I'm representing the whole band. If it was just me, I don't think I'd care, but it's the whole band.
Right.
And sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe they would do better with someone else, or maybe, and I just get so like lost in the spiral. And I don't know if it's just because, and I hate when you're a female singing music, there's always like this thing that like people do where they like, oh, I don't normally like female singers. Like I get that all the time. I don't normally like female singers, but you're good. And I'm like, I don't even know what to think, I guess. And it's just you're just always like on edge because yes, it's good because there's not as many. I mean, there's a lot more now male bands with female singers, but
Right.
it's still like weird. They're like, "Oh, you're a female fronted band," and I'm like, "Uh-huh," but like we're more than that. And I know that some people use it just to describe like the style of music as opposed to a genre because it's not a
Right.
genre. But it's very different because someone's like, if you don't sound like what they think in their head, or if you do sound similar, like you'll see someone, oh, they're just trying to be Evanescence. Okay, well, I can tell you like 30 bands that kind of sound like Korn, but nobody cares because there's so many guys like
Right.
there's just this weirdness still in the community, like, oh, Paramore. Like, nothing like Paramore, but I have red hair or something. And there's just weird things like I'm not trying to be, or if you are, oh, they're trying to be. There's so many bands with guys that I could say that, but I don't because it's like, oh, they got their influences from there, and it's you know,
Yeah.
it's
I understand where you're coming from. And I can see where that would be troublesome. And I myself, I just, like I said, I love music. So I
and
don't.
that's a majority of people. I will say that's a majority of people, but you sometimes get people, and then you're like, okay, well, how do I dress? Because like I don't want people to think that I'm a gimmick, but then I also want to dress feminine, but then sometimes I dress like this the
Right.
majority of the time. But when I'm playing, I want to dress a little different, and then it's like, oh, are you be? It's just it's good and bad. It's good and bad. It's good.
Right.
But I get it that a lot of people, it's good that women have the advantage in that point, but also sometimes it's not because then you're just like, I don't want to be put in that.
I I get it. And I mean, I've always loved. Um, I mean, I've got a ton of female singers that I've idolized. A ton of female fronted bands or even a whole female band. I mean, Vixen back in the '90s, I loved them. You know,
We were
um,
just talking about them. I don't know if I know any Vixen, but I've
it,
heard. I know who they are, like I know
right.
the name. I just don't know.
Yeah, the singer passed away from ovarian cancer, and they're I don't know who they've got singing for him now, but they're actually coming um probably about 20 minutes from here, 15 minutes from here. I want to say in May.
Oh, cool.
It's kind of like it's called Picktown Palooza. It's for Pickerington, Ohio, and they just it's like Slaughter and Vixen, and they've just got some old hair metal bands that is a really cool lineup. But I mean, I mean, back when I was a kid, like, you know, Pat Benatar, Joan Jett, you
I
know,
love Pat Benatar.
yes, I mean, those were like my favorite singers back then. So, I mean, obviously, as a young male, I've seen people like Stevie Nicks or whatever as a sex object, but it's different when you get older. Now I see
No, I
it
get it.
now I see it as like, okay, this chick rocks. I don't give a shit if you're playing with a group of dudes, a group of guys, a group of gremlins. You know,
Yeah.
you're putting yourself out there and you're rocking. And
Um,
I'm not gonna really say Evanescence or Paramore or anything. I think you got your own sound.
no, and people do, but it's funny that when we do get something, you're always like, oh, what is this gonna be? Because it's always you're like, oh, interesting. It's always Evanescence is like the top one, and I don't think it's because we sound anything like Evanescence. It's
Right.
just purely because it's a rock, and there may be some overtones or whatever. But you're sure you're like it's gonna be. The other day, someone surprised me, and actually they said Pat Benatar and Evanescence combined, and I was like, okay, maybe that little edgy, maybe okay. But you always, you're always like, I'm gonna get one of two things.
Yeah.
So
Well, I don't like to
sometimes
really.
we get hailstorm too, I will say. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I don't like to compare musicians. Like you said, people draw their influence from Corn or whatever, and half a dozen
Mhm.
bands or more sound like them.
Yep.
It's like I said, your band and yourself have your own sound. Whether I feel like you sound like the Dixie Chicks or freaking whoever, you know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
irrelevant. You have your own voice, and that's why I was asking if you had vocal training, because I'm very impressed by your voice.
Thank you.
And you should be. I mean, I guess in one way it's an honor to be compared to them people, but I can
It
see.
is. It is. I get it, and I
Right.
and I appreciate it, but it's also like there's there's just so many bands, I guess, that I'm like those, but it's always those two, and I know it's because they're the most popular, and I know people mean it as a compliment, and I always know that, and I'm not like mad that people say it. I'm just like, okay. Like, sure. Like I appreciate it. I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm not hearing it. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's me. Maybe there's some glimpse of whatever in there. But my vocal influences are not. I mean, I love Amy Lee. I have her piano book right here because I like her music. Um, but I will say that her vocals weren't my like it was male singers were my biggest influence.
Okay. So
Uh,
tell me
so
about your influences. Who are they?
um so I do like Pat Benatar. But I like Howard Jones from Killswitch Engage.
Okay. He's from
Um
Columbus, Ohio.
Chester Bennington, obviously. Lincoln Park was a big one. Um I will say some of what Hailstorm did made me think, okay, it's okay to have that rough edge to your voice. But female singer wise, I can't pin. I did like Flyleaf when I
Okay.
was a kid. I thought she was one of the ones that made me think, okay, I could be in a band. Like I could maybe do that. Like when you're a kid and you see a girl and you're like, oh wow, okay, like that's possible,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And like seeing her scream and stuff, I said, oh right, all right, yeah, like she kind of inspired me in that sense. I didn't realize And then it's fine that they're a Christian band. I'm just not like a devout, you know,
Right.
Christian or anything. But when they first came out, or when I first heard them, I was like, oh, this is really, really cool. And then I would say this is gonna be a really weird one, but Jewel. I really like Jewel.
Oh God, I loved Jewel back in the day.
So my voice, well, my voice, my mom, I don't know if she had a CD or something that she would play, and I would try to mimic it. And so the other day in a vocal lesson, I'm like talking to my voice teacher. I'm like, and I do this thing, and I'm like, shit, it's because I was, I always wanted to sound like Jewel, and I have this weird yodely thing that I do with my voice, and I randomly do it, and I've tried to like stop myself from doing it because it's a breathing thing. But I'll
Right.
do it, and I'm like, I didn't want, uh-oh, and I'm like, oh, when we like discovered like childhood vocal things that I unbeknownst to do. So those are like the bigger influences for me of like singing wise. I mean, Howard Jones is just amazing. I love.
Yeah. I remember when Kill Switch came out, and oh Edge of Heartache.
Yeah, and the End of Heartache is
End of Heartache.
one of my desert island albums.
Yeah, that was.
His scream, like that's the style of screaming, like well, and also Lincoln Park, I will say, but
Did you ever get to see him live? Oh my God, I've seen Lincoln Park probably 4 times. Amazing, and that was such a loss to the rock community. Him, Chris Cornell. I mean, all those guys that just through that era, it was so sad. And
yeah, after that, I was like, I need to go see every band I ever want to see, like
yeah,
so I've been on that kick. Like any band that I like, kind of like, I'm gonna go see.
I I hear you. It's I mean, like you said, life is short. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Lauren. Well, we're about out of time. I really do appreciate you guys taking the time. Well, you taking the time to talk to me. Like I said, it popped up on my feed, and I wanted to talk to you and know more about you guys. I'll get this edited and up, and I'll send you a copy of it. And
Yeah, and then
also,
we can tag you, like, so we can tag everything.
okay, and also I'll send you an email with some of those names I was talking about.
Oh yeah, for sure. That would be awesome.
So yeah, I mean, good people. They're not money hungry or anything like that. So yeah, it might be beneficial, might not, but doesn't hurt to
I
contact.
mean, if you throw enough at the wall.
Sometime it will stick.
Yeah, that's the theory, right? So
Right. Well, we know about theories.
yeah.
So
Or kind of, yeah.
yeah. All right, girl. Well, thank you so much for talking with me, and just keep rocking. You guys are doing great. Love it.
You.
And hopefully, I mean, I know it's probably about 700 miles, but maybe sometime you guys make it out this way. Would love to do a live one.
Oh yeah, for sure. If you know any bands that ever need band, you know what I mean? We connect that way. So yeah, let us know.
Okay. All right. Well, you have a
Thank
good
you for
evening,
having
and
us.
thank you.
Me, like I have my
I know.
personalities.
Thanks. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye.